Hi, it's Rachel at Alicia, and thank you so much for tuning into Investment Piece's first video. If you have been following me on my journey thus far, you may have gotten the hint that I love me some shoes, and I hope you do too. The problem can often be, however, that shoes don't always love us back. You know what I mean. You buy a great pair of shoes, you wear them, and you get blisters and your feet are torn apart. Or you buy a great pair of shoes, they seem to fit in a store, or you order them online, you get them home, and they're just a tad bit too tight. What do you do at that point? Can often be the question that you're sitting there asking yourself. And of course, the answer cannot be return them or give them away because fabulous shoes. The good news is that there are answers to your problems, and I am here to help you. These are products that I use pretty much all the time. They're my go-to arsenal when I find shoes that either I feel are going to give me blisters or are a little bit too tight. First off, blisters, because no one wants them. They're incredibly unattractive, and especially with sandal weather coming, none of us want to subject our feet, would be a great way to put it, to that sort of pain and unsightliness. So the first tool in our arsenal against blisters are the little nude socks that you can buy everywhere, from the grocery store to the pharmacy to Target. I believe they even sell them in airports. I know these are not sexy, ladies. They make you feel kind of like your grandma. And then often, if you're me, you worry about the little nude sticking out from your shoe. However, they work. They prevent blisters like nobody's business. They help your shoes fit a little bit better. They come in all shapes and sizes. They're cut for every single different type of shoe. So while you may feel like, oh, it's kind of an old lady thing, sometimes old ladies know what they're doing. The next thing that I use quite a bit for blisters is moleskin. They sell it again almost everywhere, pharmacies, Target, the grocery store. It comes in big sheets. Sometimes it comes in bigger sheets than this, and it has the peel back and the sticky on the back. What you do is you simply cut and fit it into that part of the shoe that may rub you in the wrong place, or maybe you need just a tad bit more comfort. Great way to prevent blisters and rubbing right here. And one of my favorite products ever in the history of products is this Dr. Scholl's blister, what is it called? Miracle Shield. And as you can tell, I use this all the time. It's almost like a Vaseline type product, but it's pretty thick. You're gonna take it and just rub it on the parts of your foot or even the parts of your shoe that rub you the wrong way. I know for me, this happens to be my little toes. I danced growing up, so parts of my feet are weird. And often if I just rub this on my toes before I wear a new pair of shoes, or even if it's a pair of shoes that I just can't seem to break in, this prevents blisters in that area. It also stays great on your heels as well. But beyond blisters, there's often the problem of your shoes being too narrow, and this can happen for numerous reasons. Maybe your feet are swelling, maybe they aren't swelling, maybe your feet, did get a blister and you're trying to protect them from that. And there are a couple different things that you can do. Again, all hope is not lost. Do not get rid of your fabulous shoes. The first thing I would recommend is go to your cobbler. Professional cobblers are great at stretching your shoes. They can often get a half size to a full size width-wise, and they do it in a manner that's gentle and loving and caring on your shoes. The next thing that I would recommend, great shoe stores like Neiman's, Saks, Bloomingdale's, Nordstrom's, or just a really good shoe store will often offer this service as well. For example, I love the brand Sophia Webster. They're fabulous shoes. I know for me, they tend to run a bit narrow. So every time I've purchased those shoes from the store, I simply get the guys at Nordstrom's or Neiman's or wherever to stretch them for me. It usually takes about a half an hour, and it's a great service. But there are times when we get home and our shoes are still too tight, or perhaps you've ordered online. And again, for me, sometimes it's not even till the second wearing that I'm like, oh, wait a minute, these are a little bit too tight or a little bit uncomfortable. Those are the shoes I tend to call, they have the time limit on them. But they're fabulous shoes, and you don't want to put a time limit on fabulous shoes. So what can you do at home? Well, there are a couple different things that you can do. One of the most common, and the one that I think that I've done the most, is just to get the tissue paper that has come in the toe box or a big wad of socks and just stuff it down in that shoe and leave it in there. And hopefully it stretches out, it does its job. no problem. Sometimes you need a little bit more than that. In shoe care aisles across pharmacies, Target, clearly everywhere else, they sell shoe stretch, and this works best on leather shoes, but it's almost just an aerosol can, and you can spray it in, and then once you've sprayed this in, it's going to stretch a little bit, but it's going to need something to stretch it out. So this is where your socks, your tissue paper, etc. would come in. Also, stores tend to sell these shoe stretchers, and it originally will look like this. There's a little screw on the bottom. You're going to stuff it into your shoe and screw it to the width that you need and leave it in overnight or over weeks. It's a great combination with your spray, and it will stretch out your shoes. One method that I read about online that I was too chicken to try was to fill a baggie, or to place a baggie in your shoe and to fill that baggie with water and then put your shoe in the freezer. Why that scared me so much, I don't know, but all I could think of was, oh, my great shoes being ruined in the freezer. And no one wants that, right? However, there is one more method to stretch your shoes that I want to try with you right here, right now. So let's get going. So the best method I know to stretch your shoes at home, if they are a little bit too tight, is kind of involved, but it's well worth the effort. What you're gonna need is you're gonna need these shoes that are a little bit too tight, and as you can see, mine have the little tissue paper that I've stuffed in there to kind of stretch them out beforehand. You're going to need a thick pair of socks and your hairdryer. I was too afraid to put my shoes in the freezer, but I'm not too afraid to get my socks wet and put them on. And that's what you're going to do. The idea being that any shoe, and again, this works best on leather shoes, any shoe that's leather, it's gonna stretch a bit when it's wet. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna wet our socks, put them on, walk around in the shoes to stretch out the leather, and then we're gonna dry them with our hairdryer, moving our feet in them to really stretch them out. And we're gonna see if it works. So let's get going. I've wet my socks, and I used essentially room temperature water, not too cold, not too hot, and I'm going to put them on, which feels not great, I'm gonna be honest with you, but anything for fashion, correct? So we're just gonna put our socks on, and again, you want to use the thickest socks you have, the idea being that they will stretch out your shoes the most. I'm going to put my shoes on, which feels super weird between my wet and thick socks. But get the shoes on. There we go. Then you're just simply going to walk around in them. Now you have your wet socks on and you're walking around in your shoes. The idea is to walk around in them as long as you can. If you're at home for the afternoon and you could leave them on, that would be ideal, because again, you really want to stretch them for as long as you can, essentially. But for the purposes of this video, I'm not going to make you watch hours of me stretching out my shoes. So we're just gonna move right on to the next part, for which you will need your trusty hairdryer. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna take your hairdryer, any hairdryer, set it at the highest setting, and you're gonna blow dry your shoes. Now, what you're going to do is concentrate on those areas that are tight. So for example, the toe box or maybe the heel. Really work that leather. Now, you may not be able to do this in a graceful manner. I've never managed to do that, but we're gonna try. So here we go. We have our hairdryer. And again, just kind of bending and drying where it's a little tight. Good as new, or better than new. Again, hopefully they fit fantastic. If they don't, you can go through the whole process again. Maybe wear your wet socks in your shoes a little bit longer. But I hope that these tips have helped you and your shoes have a better relationship. And I look forward to chatting with you next time. Hope you have a great Thursday.